Just when you think things can't get more nuts, they do. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Crue Trime. Crue Trime! Whoa, scared the shit out of me. My name is Sarah, and what I do here is tell you a terrible story to ruin your day, and put on my makeup at the same time. So if that floats your boat, then you are in the right place. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification, and then that way you will never miss one of my terrible stories. Today's story was actually recommended by a lovely and sweet viewer named Andy. Everybody say hi to Andy. Hi, Andy! She wrote, "Hi, Sarah. I've been following you for a while. Thank you. And a quick thank you for getting me through one of the roughest periods of my life, which was grieving my mom after her passing from a fast and aggressive cancer." Oh, Andy! Well, then Andy gave me the quick and dirty details of the story for today, and I'm going to skip over that so I don't spoil it. Fast forward. The story I bring to you is one from my hometown of Westchester, Pennsylvania. I live in Florida now, but long story short, they were quickly caught because they are both so fucking stupid that it honestly astonishes me. You'd have a field day with this one. They were featured on one of Keith Morrison's shows. Our entire town, pretty tight-knit, was obviously appalled by this. Hope you get to dive into this one, and from one fair-skinned person to another, love your makeup. You've inspired so many looks that I've adopted. Andy. Well, Andy, big hugs to you, and thank you for hanging out with us, and thank you for this recommendation because it was terrible. This is the story of Kevin Mengel. On June 20th, 2010, Father's Day, in the Philadelphia suburb of West Goshen, Pennsylvania, the Mengel family was gathering to celebrate Father's Day. This one was going to be particularly special because Kevin Sr. and Kevin Jr. had recently reconciled after not speaking to each other for like 7 years. Well, Kevin Jr. was 33 years old and a young dad himself, so it was really nice to have his dad around again, and they were really looking forward to spending the day together.
Kevin and I had not spent a Father's Day together in 7 years, and we were very, very excited.
But as the afternoon went on, Kevin Jr. never showed up. At 3:40 p.m., Kevin's wife, Morgan, sent a text message saying, quote, "Sorry, due to unforeseen circumstances, we will not be able to make it today. Love you. Happy Father's Day."
That was it.
Well, shit. Kevin's dad and siblings just sort of said to themselves, they must be fighting again. They being Morgan and Kevin. So the text message came from Morgan, but they decided to reach out to Kevin directly, Kevin Jr. So they all start kind of calling, messaging. He's not answering, right? Well, as they're all each trying to get Kevin to respond, they start comparing notes like, well, when is the last time you talked to Kevin? When was the last time you got a message from Kevin? And it had been days for all of them. So nobody had seen him or heard from him. Not his brother, not his sister, not his mom, nobody. And that was weird. He typically talked to his mom at least every day. But now they're getting some kind of like cryptic message from Morgan on Father's Day. So they called the police and filed a missing persons report. They assumed that there must have been some kind of blow up between Kevin and Morgan, and Kevin probably ran off to clear his head. But why would they think that? Born in Springfield, Pennsylvania on July 2nd, 1976, Kevin was the oldest of 3 siblings, brother Chris and sister Michelle. He graduated from Westchester East High School in 1995. He was an ambitious and hardworking kind of guy, and family was very important to him. After his parents divorced when he was a kid, he felt like it was his responsibility to look after his younger siblings. Now, he remained close to his parents and siblings, but growing up in kind of a fractured family unit really left a mark on him, and he never ever wanted to get divorced. Ever. Well, Kevin and Morgan's relationship was rocky, but it wasn't always that way. They'd been together for 13 years by then, and when they first met, it was great. They were very much in love. Morgan was very charming. She was very sweet and attentive to Kevin. But as time went on, cracks started to show. And what I mean is, Morgan wasn't the most forthcoming, I guess. She would lie about stuff that she didn't need to lie about. She had a problem with the truth. Also, she was very irresponsible with money. She would tell Kevin that the bills were paid when they weren't, and then things would get disconnected. They'd fight about it. They'd make up. Morgan's behavior escalated to things like writing bad checks and shoplifting. And again, her and Kevin would fight and then make up. After a while, their breakups kind of became an annual tradition. About a year into their relationship, Morgan became pregnant, although she never told the family. Correction, Morgan told nobody, including Kevin. When her belly started to grow, she just told Kevin that her birth control made her bloated. At some random family gathering, Morgan showed up with an obviously pregnant belly, but she just claimed she was bloated.
No, it's not me.
Girl, she went into labor the next day. Even when the family showed up to the hospital, to greet this new baby, she doubled down and said, I don't know what happened. The doctor said I wasn't pregnant. What doctor? The one that just delivered the baby? Whatever, you get it. The person that we're dealing with here lives in an alternate reality. Anyway, it didn't matter because Kevin was over the moon to be a dad. He and Morgan eventually got married, and he started up his own business, a landscaping company, named for the first letter of the names of their 3 children, MKB Property Maintenance, with their shop located on Westchester Pike in West Goshen. Yeah, I said 3 children. They had 2 more kids after the first one. Kevin was all about having a family, and he was super devoted to Morgan. Part of the reason that Kevin became estranged from his father in recent years was because of everything that he did to take up for Morgan. She could literally do anything, and Kevin would forgive her and defend her. Well, speaking of doing anything, Morgan would fairly often do Kevin's friends. She would run off with some dude right in Kevin's face, have her fun, and then come home whenever she wanted. Divorce was not an option for Kevin, remember? He would do whatever it took to keep his family together. So, 13 years of this kind of stuff might have boiled over on Father's Day when they were supposed to meet up with Kevin's family. So now we're kind of back to the beginning. Nobody can reach Kevin, and they've filed a missing persons report, which might have seemed kind of extra. But remember, Morgan was always the one who would run off and leave Kevin with the kids. So him being missing was a really big deal. Okay, so the day after the missing report was made, the police checked in on Morgan at their apartment. Morgan was cool as a cucumber, She's like, oh my God, calm down, everybody. Look at my phone. Look at these text messages that I just got from him. It just said, he needed some time alone. He just needed to go off by himself and clear his head. She told the police that Kevin's business wasn't doing well, and he was super stressed out about it, and showed them a text message from 4 days before. It said, quote, I hate to do this to the kids, but I'm not happy. I don't want this life anymore. You can deal with the business however you want. Hold on a second. That's not like a I need a timeout message. That's like a I don't want this life anymore message. That sounds very much the flavor of someone who wants to end their life. You know what I'm saying? But that's how she explained it to the police, and they bought it. Kevin's family wasn't buying it. None of it. He would never leave those kids like that. They were very worried. And they kept trying to reach out, When Kevin's family tried to call him, he wouldn't answer, but he would answer text messages. He'd say things like, Morgan is taking care of the business. I just need some time to myself. I'm okay. Relax. But his family, specifically his dad, Kevin Sr., was squinting. Kevin's mother was also in constant contact with the investigators, calling them every other day to report new things that they had found. Well, Kevin's Facebook page had been updated to say that he needed to be left alone. Weird. His text messages also from that point on were kind of unusual. Meaning, he wasn't the type of person to spell everything out. He would very much use abbreviations, just letters, like U instead of YOU, which I find so annoying, personally. The point is, all of these text messages that were being sent from Kevin all of a sudden were all spelled out with proper punctuation and proper grammar, which was very unlike him. Kevin was telling his family to leave him alone, but his sister wasn't convinced. She texted to him, if you can tell me the name of the street we grew up on, I will leave you alone. Nothing. Well, a week after Kevin disappeared, it looked like 34-year-old Morgan had herself a new boyfriend. and he was living with her. It was actually one of Kevin's employees from the landscaping business, 21-year-old Steve Chappelle. This dude was like very 21. Look at him. He looks 17. Well, according to Morgan,
that Kevin wanted Uncle Steve, according to Morgan, to be there to watch over the kids while he was away.
well, he was watching over Morgan, all right. Well, he was seen holding her hand, taking the kids out for ice cream in Kevin's truck. I mean, they were just fully playing house. You know, this wasn't just some family friend. Witnesses later would say that they saw what appeared to be a very romantic relationship. I mean, obviously, we can see where this is going, right? Well, the police started to become more interested in what the F was going on at Morgan's, so they brought in Uncle Steve for questioning. You know, Steve was holding the line, saying that they were just friends, you know, I guess. But the police played on his age and naivete, right? They told him, it's not a crime to have an affair with your boss's wife, but it is a crime to lie to the police. Steve crumbled. He told the police that Morgan came on to him.
Aged 18 years. The way I like it.
She actively pursued him, you know, telling him that he was so handsome and smart and all these things, and he fell for it. He told the investigators that he and Morgan started hooking up in his pickup truck. Well, I mean, the landscaping company's pickup truck. And, you know, at job sites. Ugh! It became a regular thing, you know. They were also hooking up at the shop, in secret. I mean, imagine it. Grass clippings, dirt, sweat. Ugh. Never mind the ick factor, but what this really was a motive to make Kevin disappear. Well, the police leaned on Steve. You know, maybe Morgan did something to Kevin and was trying to set him up to take the fall. Steve asked for a lawyer. Meanwhile, on June 24th, Morgan asked Kevin's mom to take care of the kids for a couple of days. Alarm bells started to go off big time because Morgan had been pretty elusive with them in the days after Kevin kind of disappeared. And now all of a sudden she wants them to watch the kids for a couple of days. It's not like she was just, you know, going out of town for a long weekend. She's about to skip town. Well, at this point, the police didn't really have enough information, enough evidence, or probable cause to really do anything else. It just seemed like an estranged couple that were just going through it, right? So they weren't going to do much about it. But Kevin's family did. They camped out with a video camera and watched Morgan and Kevin's apartment. And sure enough, the next morning they saw Steve coming out of the apartment carrying a duffel bag.
That's him. He's walking out. He's got a bag.
Then they saw Morgan come out with bags, more bags, all loading up into the truck. Kevin's brother, Chris, called the police.
Can I get hold of Detective Maurer real quick? His wife and the new boyfriend are making a move right now to leave. They're leaving.
Well, the lead detective that was working the missing persons case was actually already in the area at the landscaping shop, hoping that maybe he would run into Kevin if he was like sleeping there, you know? Remember, in the view of the police, at this point, this was just married couple drama. But then, guess who pulled up? Morgan and Steve. Steve stayed in the truck, but Morgan approached the shop, you know, where the detective was standing, and she just walked right past him like he wasn't there. The detective's like, hello? What's going on? I guess watching Morgan speak to the police really spooked Steve because he put the pedal to the metal and screamed out of there. Or, you know, had they gotten into a fight of some kind and he just dropped her off? At any rate, well, Morgan is now left there with a detective who's asking questions, and now homeboy left, so she needed to pivot. Well, the detective put an alert out on the now stolen truck, you know, a bolo, be on the lookout, so that they could catch Steve, and then he invited Morgan down to the police station for a little chat. He started asking questions about her and Steve playing house, knowing that Kevin could come home at any minute. Or perhaps did she know that he wasn't coming home? Well, of course, Morgan decided to agree with him. Steve said that he was in love with her and would do anything to be with her. So then the detective asked, did Steve maybe do something to Kevin? Then she dropped the bomb. Steve hit Kevin in the back of the head with a shovel.
Oh, shit.
I mean, you could have led with that, Morgan. I mean, unless you're trying to protect Steve, right? Well, the more that the police pushed for answers, the more Morgan clammed up. Didn't matter because the police decided to start digging, and they dug into the cell phone data. Damn cell phones, they will get you. They'll get you every time. Okay, so Kevin was gone, but his cell phone was sending text messages to his family, remember? Well, they didn't find Kevin, but they did find a boatload of text messages between Morgan and Steve, including a bunch of deleted texts. These people texted like nobody's business, like hundreds of texts a day. They found thousands of messages exchanged between Morgan and Steve that pretty much outline the exact timeline of them getting together, their relationship, and every minute of what happened to Kevin Mengel. So as we all clearly realize, there was definitely some shenanigans going on between Morgan and Steve. In fact, they found out that young Steve was a virgin before the temptress Morgan lured him into her bed.
Just as I thought. Trash.
I'm really kind of coming after Morgan heavy in this story, but she's a terrible person, okay? I mean, no wonder Steve was under her spell in this way. He was dickmatized. And I know I typically use that term in the reverse, but it's a unisex term. Morgan convinced Steve that if he could make Kevin disappear, she and him could be together and he could take over the landscaping business. And then they could just live happily ever after. Anyways, they also combed through all of their search history and they discovered that Morgan and Steve had searched for how to make liquid nicotine. So liquid nicotine is apparently super duper toxic, especially in concentrated doses, and one drop could kill a person, even if they just absorb it through their skin. So Morgan and Steve's text message history showed that on the evening of June 19th, 2010, Steve was at his mom's house cooking up liquid nicotine. Once he felt like he had it sufficiently concentrated, he poured it into a bottle of Snapple iced tea. I guess that was one of Kevin's favorite things. And then he gave it to Morgan. Morgan put the Snapple in Kevin's truck for him to drink at work. Well, Steve was already at the shop when Kevin arrived, drinking the Snapple. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Meanwhile, Steve is texting Morgan a play-by-play. Well, apparently, Chef Steve's concentrated liquid nicotine wasn't working, because 2 hours went by and Kevin was still, acting normal. You would think that somebody would taste liquid nicotine poured into their lemon Snapple, but whatever. Well, Kevin was just working on equipment in the shop and Steve was losing patience. So Steve grabbed a shovel and stood behind Kevin, waiting for him to not be paying attention. And then wham! Hit him over the head. That shovel actually broke. Kevin went down, but was still conscious. So Steve grabbed a second shovel and hit him over and over until he stopped moving. He actually broke that second shovel as well. Once Kevin stopped moving, Steve texted Morgan, "It's done. Get up here now." She responded, "Seriously? ? Steve, dead serious. Pulse? ? Get here now." I mean, the play-by-play. If it wasn't so tragic, it would be comical. Well, Morgan arrived pretty quickly and went straight into cleanup mode. They grabbed a tarp and wrapped up Kevin's body, and then they kind of concealed it in the shop for the time being. Steve came back and drove Kevin's body out to a wooded area. He dug a fairly shallow hole and buried it. And like they did with freaking everything, he was texting Morgan play-by-play. I mean, they could have only documented it better if they were videotaping it. Like Morgan actually said in the text message, "Did you find a spot yet?" And then Steve came back with, "Yeah, I'm digging it." Come on! Okay, so eventually, police, when they're talking to Morgan, show her all of these text messages. Like, "Girl, ya busted." Okay, so Morgan told police that Steve buried Kevin's body in a wooded area behind a new development, like a neighborhood development, behind Marple Newtown High School in Delaware County, where Steve went to high school, by the way. But don't take this as some kind of revolutionary come to Jesus moment for our friend Morgan. She was still lying her ass off, trying to spin the story to make it seem like she was an innocent victim in all of this. So that liquid nicotine was just an innocent prank that Steve and her were playing on Kevin. It certainly wasn't meant to kill him, and it didn't. Steve was the one who grabbed the shovel and hit Kevin over the head, and Steve was the one who took his body out to the woods and buried it. She wasn't there for any of it. It had nothing to do with her.
Why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
I mean, how is she supposed to know that he was going to do any of that? Girl, because of your text messages. Hello? Well, the police arrested Morgan, of course, and she was charged with conspiracy and first-degree murder. This delusional ass hoe, when she was being booked for these crimes, she was trying to flirt with them to get out of it.
Hi.
Okay.
I mean, of course it didn't do any good. She was held in jail without bail, pending trial. Meanwhile, old Steve's out here running for his life. There's a bolo out on the truck, but it was just a matter of time before they found him. And they did. He was arrested on June 26th, 2010 in Denver, Colorado. He got pretty far. That's like some 2,000 miles from Philadelphia. Steve, of course, confessed immediately, and he cried like a baby the whole time. He told investigators that Morgan promised, to be with him forever if he killed Kevin for her. The police felt that he was being truthful, at least more truthful than Morgan. Kevin was charged with conspiracy and first-degree murder of Kevin Mengel. There's fallout all under here. Steve was actually offered a plea agreement to reduce his charge to third-degree murder in exchange for testifying against Morgan. Kevin's family agreed to the offer. They knew that although Steve was the one who delivered the blow, Morgan was the one who was ultimately responsible. And she was obviously trying to get away with things, by continuing to text them from Kevin's phone. Just when you think things can't get more nuts, they do. Knowing that Steve was going to testify against her at trial, Morgan actually reached out to Steve by letter. I mean, at this point, he's still totally under her spell, if you can believe that. And they'd actually exchanged dozens of letters, jailhouse love notes. She convinced him that she was pregnant with his twins. She wrote that he needed to accept full responsibility so that she could be released to raise his babies freely. I mean, like, what? Oh yeah, she carried these babies to term and even wrote to him with like a birth announcement and some like ginned up birth certificates with their names and their weights and measurements and all this crap.
The lies! There you go, this bitch!
She told him that she gave birth to these twin boys right there in the Chester County Jail on February 9th and 10th, right before her trial was scheduled to start. This poor dumb guy. I mean, good God. Well, the police intercepted these letters. Nothing's private in jail, by the way. And they showed Steve that there were no babies. She was not pregnant. These were all lies, more lies to influence. He finally, I guess, woke up. Well, when Morgan's trial finally began in February of 2012, the state laid out a case that described Morgan as a full-blown narcissist, and in the time leading up to the summer of 2010, Morgan was just tired of being married, and she knew that a divorce would leave her without any money and probably without the custody of her kids. She was convinced that Kevin and his mother would share custody of the children based on her past. Well, once she met the gullible 21-year-old Steve Chappelle, he had started working at the landscaping company earlier that spring. She started singing her siren song to him, and by Memorial Day weekend, they were having regular sexcapades in her truck. After she and Kevin had a pretty big blow-up argument on June 15th, Morgan decided to move forward with her plan of getting rid of him. She had Steve cook up this nicotine poison, and then when Steve bludgeoned Kevin with the shovels, they cleaned up the mess, hid the body, buried the body, and then she pretended that she was Kevin, continuing to text his family from his phone. The state's case was essentially bulletproof. They had a real-time story that they could unfold for the jury, with the defendant admitting to everything in their own words. But Get this! On day 3 of the trial, during testimony, the state asked a West Goshen police officer that was involved in the investigation about an encounter that he had with Morgan's father. The officer testified that her father said that Morgan could be despicable. Morgan's attorney, John J. McMahon, objected.
Objection hearsay.
The comment was improper, designed to malign his client's character, and there was no way that the jury could not be tainted, and he demanded a mistrial. And it was granted. The case law in Pennsylvania that determines when prosecution should be barred from a retrial says that prosecutorial misconduct intended to cause a mistrial would make it fall under double jeopardy rules. You know, you can't be tried for the same thing twice. But the improper statement was unfairly prejudicial to the defense, but it was ruled as not intended to deny a fair trial. It was just one bit of evidence brought against her, any one of which could be seen as damaging. She was a terrible person. I mean, it's definitely some legal gymnastics, but some very good lawyering on the part of the defense. At any rate, a new trial was granted. Steve had been scheduled to testify on day 5 of that original trial that was, declared a mistrial on day 3. But now, a year later, Steve, very much undigmatized, was ready to lay it all out for a new jury for Morgan's trial that was then scheduled for February of 2013. But before Steve Chappelle could take the stand, Morgan decided to take a plea agreement. Steve was later sentenced to 40 to 60 years in prison, and he will be eligible for parole in the year 2050. So Morgan decided to plead guilty to the charges of first-degree murder, possession of instruments of crime, hindering apprehension, and criminal conspiracy. At her formal sentencing, the state disputed the defense's case that this was some love triangle gone bad. Chester County Chief Deputy District Attorney Patrick Carmody said, quote, "She tried to make her husband disappear, but because of the love of Kevin's family and the truly excellent work of the police, it didn't happen." Morgan Marie Mengel, age 37, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Investigators were able to recover Kevin's body and he was properly laid to rest. A memorial service was held for him on July 18, 2010, and later a bench was placed in Kevin's honor at Oakbourne Park at Westtown Township. And that is the story of Kevin Mengel. Thanks again to Andy for the terrible recommendation. I appreciate you, friend. If you have a terrible story that you would like to recommend, just look down in the description box. There's a link to a document, a Google Doc, where you can enter all of the dirty details. I would love to hear from you. If you want to know what makeup I used in today's look, I will link everything that is still available, but a lot of it is old. But I'll find something similar. Thank you so much for hanging out today and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you want to see more videos like this one, then consider subscribing to the channel before you leave today. I upload new videos here on YouTube every week, and you can follow me everywhere on all of the socials. That is it for now. I will catch you next time in next week's video. Bye! Steve hit him on June 10th, 2000. Nope, not June 10th. His client's fall out all over my face. Particularly. I'm kind of inspired today to use up old makeup. So everything I'm using is expired. Oh my God, what's on my eye? It's one of my terrible stories. It peaked the microphone.
You peaked 2 years ago.
Give me another one. Crue Trime!